longtime Lions beat reporter. He's got a Lions Substack here. Um, and obviously, Washington, one of the moves they just made was signing or agreeing to terms with cornerback Amik Robertson. So I wanted to bring Justin on. He is the founder of the Detroit Football Network on here. Does a great job there, so you can check him out. But he'll be on here in a few moments with me to get a feel for who Amik Robertson is. One of the moves they made on day one of free agency. They've made nothing today because almost nobody has made any moves today. It's been a super duper quiet Tuesday here in the NFL world, so we're waiting on some of that. Obviously, Washington super busy yesterday. Big move was, because however you want to look at it, on the free agency note, coming to terms with a dope. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I wrote this down here because I was saying it wrong and I wanted to get it right. So hold on. Adofi Owe, uh, edge rusher from the Chargers and the Ravens last year. He is the big new signing coming in here that Washington um, brought in. We all knew they needed an edge rusher. They went for one of the bigger names out there. I had one person from another team tell me they thought he was the second best edge guy in the league behind Jalen Phillips in this class. I assume he meant including Trey Hendrickson, but I don't know. That's what he said. Anyway, so they did that. Of course, they also, extended Larry Tunsil out through 2028. They brought back Marcus Mariota. They brought in old friend Tim Settle. And, now we're kind of waiting to see what else they do. But, we're going to talk about these new guys and who they are and what they bring to the table. If you missed it with Robertson yesterday, he signed again, nobody signed anything yet. You can't sign anything until Wednesday at 4:00 when the new league year starts. But everybody's agreed to terms. Hypothetically, deals could be broken, but it rarely happened. It did happen here a couple of years ago with J.D. McKissick going to Buffalo and then pivoting to come back to Washington. But 2 years, $16 million, 9.3 guaranteed. A lot of the cornerbacks who were out in the market were getting like $13 million a year, give or take. Now, a lot of those guys were on the outside and sort of play in, play out starters. We'll see what Robertson's role is. My quick assumption is that he's going to be the slot corner based on his past history. I can't say based on size alone because he and Mikey Sanderstill are similar size, but we have seen Mikey Sanderstill, be an effective player the last 2 years when he's on the outside. The question is that he's always been starting on the inside, then moves out when injuries happen or poor play happens. And he has seemingly been better. And I feel like this move signals that the staff views that as well. Kevin Sheehan was pointing out to me yesterday, was on his show, that last year Minnesota with Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator, Durante Jones as the DB coach, stayed in base formation more than any team in the league. I guess base is somewhat relative. I mean, like 3-4, 4-3, this sort of amoeba look. But the point is just that they were not necessarily going with like a nickel package that we've seen now, going back with Ron Rivera and the Buffalo nickel, and then the first 2 years here, where they were constantly having only two linebackers on the field. So Washington may not have more than two corners out there often. And even if they do have five defensive backs, maybe it's three safeties. We know, obviously, Quan Martin, Jeremy Reeves, Will Harris can play a little bit, right? So we'll see how that works. Yes, Ron Rivera position flex. Trust me, I swear, every time somebody tells me that somebody is versatile and can play all over, I still get PTSD on the Ron Rivera front. I'm just Justin and I were texting earlier, so I'm just checking back in him, and he's is in zero worry here. I'm just doing what I do. I'll be honest with you, I still struggle navigating the back end of okay, hold on, let me see here. Okay, hold on. Justin is saying he's here, but hold on, let me see. All right, hold on here. Let me try something here. Um, is how do I make this work? I know this is terrible, terrible, and I should have waited until he was in here before I started futzing around here. Um, but hold on one sec. The Lion. Oh my God, he may have to go here. The Lions are signing Isaiah Pacheco. Justin may have to roll here all of a sudden, even before he gets on the show here with me. So hold on, we're gonna have to now wait and see if that's a thing or not. Where is Justin? I don't. All right. Well, hold on one second. Scott Jackson, are you here? All right. So all right, well, let me keep trying here to see if I can um either get Justin in here or realize that he's got to go do this other stuff, which is totally reasonable considering what if the Lions just added Pacheco, who's kind of underwhelmed a bit with Kansas City, but maybe paired with Jahmyr Gibbs would give them something akin to that 1-2 punch they had with David Montgomery, who got traded uh, earlier. It's hit to the Texans earlier this offseason. All right, hold on one second here. Um, at least somebody made a move today. We're still kind of waiting on Washington to do something like this, but they've been obviously very quiet so far. Hold on. All right. While I'm futzing around here, if you guys got questions, drop them in. All right. I think Justin may be about to come in here, but I don't know. Again, we'll see here in a minute what he needs to do. In any event, so Amik Robertson, we'll talk about him in a second here. Obviously, Washington, I can't say if they got off to a good start or a strong start or a start. This is only, we hit chapter one. We've got a lot more to go here before we figure out what it is that is going to happen. And, they've got a lot of holes still, right, on defense. They still need more edge rushers, even after uh, signing or agreeing terms with OA. Linebacker right now, let's just say they're in a 3-4 base. You got Frankie Louvu on the outside. You got Jordan McGee in the middle. Maybe Kane Madrano's around there for depth. And then you have, you know, you Owe could be one of the other edge guys. He essentially lined up at like outside linebacker or at the Leo position, the far left end spot. So he could be there as well. Okay. Still nothing here. So, all right. Well, in any event, we are talking. I see there's 50 people are still in here, which is fantastic. And like I said, oh, hold on. It's here. Justin has joined. All right. Hold on. Add guests. Let's try this again. Here. This and this. Yeah, all right. We're gonna try here with Justin again, and he, like I said, appreciate his time um, for doing this, especially if he's really gonna go here and jump out. Um, Luvu, an inside linebacker. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what it looks like. I mean, as an edge defender, as a pass rusher, he really seemed effective coming off the edge. I think last year part of the problem. I mean, look, there were a lot of problems, but when you had um, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Luvu out there in coverage, neither one of those guys, that's their strength. They're both better attacking, right? And Let's see here. I'm also getting a note here from our guy Brian Johnson. In one of the threads, he's saying that somebody on Twitter is saying it's down to Washington and New England for Dobbs. Am I hearing that? I have not heard that specifically. I mean, I had heard that Washington was interested in him from the jump. Justin,
Yeah. Do you wanna know what my
oh,
problem was?
what's that?
You wanna know what the problem was?
Yeah, tell me.
The screen was scaled one size too big, and so the button, which was at the very bottom of the screen, was not visible to me. Very, very stupid stuff. Feel like we're back in COVID, and I can't figure out how to work a Zoom. It's ridiculous.
Well, no problem. But before we even get going, did you just see? Do you have to jump off?
I don't know what happened.
You guys apparently just signed Isaiah Pacheco or agreed to terms with him.
I'll get it in a minute.
Okay. Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
it's one of all tons of moves that everybody's gonna make. Obviously, you figured the Lions were gonna have to add, another running back, so I guess that job is done. He ruined my fantasy football team last year, but other than that, um, well, Dustin, thanks so much for doing this. You know, when I decided to come on with Substack last year to open up a site, I'm looking around to see there were other NFL guys making this work, and you were one who's absolutely is. Just before we get into Amik Robertson, can you I guess what's your deal here with Substack? How did you kind of get on this? And tell me and everybody here why Substack is the place to be, if you don't mind.
well, I think, like most people can probably relate to, I reached a point where I was maybe not feeling like I was being paid what I was worth. Made a presentation to my former employers and kind of laid out my case. Uh, and it's not the healthiest industry, journalism. More people losing jobs than gaining them, it seems. And we just couldn't come to terms. And I decided instead of continuing to push the boundaries with my creativity and work ethic for employer, I thought I would try to do it on my own. Did a lot of research. I, what appealed to me was not being forced into the decision. I think so many people that do this in our industry are reacting to losing a job, to layoffs, to retirement. I think there is an avenue and a future here, and I talked to a lot of people. Uh, Ty Dunn being probably the main guy,
Sure.
and for about 6 months, I kind of plotted the course while continuing my job, chipping away at it in my free time. Launched, I don't know, July of 24, and do not for a second regret the decision. It's been a big success, a big joy, and kind of everything I hoped and envisioned it would be.
Well, that's awesome, and that gives somebody like me a lot of hope. It's been good so far, but you never know how it's going to go. Is it sustainable? And someone like you and Ty shows that it really is. So, thank you for setting the path for that. And of course, again, thanks for doing this. And I see some of your followers are jumping in as well. And Amik Robertson, one of the moves that Washington made yesterday, we all kind of knew they needed a corner. I think from our perspective, it was like, okay, are they going to go for an inside guy that's moving Mikey Sanders still outside where he's been more effective the last 2 years, but he's not size wise really built for that in theory? Or would Sanders still stay in the slot and they would bring in a bigger corner? Obviously, they made the move that they made. Um, Robertson has experience on both sides, but I guess from my sense, he is more of a slot. Give us the quick bio here of Amik Robertson. What did Washington just land?
It's funny. I sought out and went to Robertson's combine session when he was coming out. At the time, Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn were kind of in charge in Detroit, and they were absolutely desperate for playmakers. They just didn't have anybody that could pick passes, and Robertson was a ball hawk in college. And so I kind of checked out what he was about, and really enjoyed the energy that he put off in that moment. Obviously, you talk to 40 guys at the combine and you're lucky if one or two end up on a team that you cover. And so,
Yeah.
you tuck those things in your back pocket. Maybe they come back sometime in the future. And um, Lions expressed interest in Robertson pretty early in the process in 24 free agency, and then traded for Carlton Davis and thought, well, that rules out getting Amik. But Amik really wanted to be in Detroit. I think he was pretty enamored with the culture. Um, the Raiders had played the Lions the previous year, and he just kind of liked the intensity, the work ethic, the attitude that they played with, and so he basically told his agent, like, "I don't care if Carlton Davis is there. I want to compete. Let's get it done." Um, the Cam Sutton situation happened to Detroit with him evading arrest and getting cut early in his contract, opening the door for Robertson to be, I guess, on the spot in the depth chart, maybe where they originally envisioned him. Going to training camp, we didn't really know outside nickel. He was better outside with the Raiders, numbers wise, no question. But kind of found a quick home here in the slot. Was really good with anticipatory skills, jumping passes in that first training camp, and I thought pretty clearly won the job. But the Lions also used a second round pick on Ennis Rakestraw that draft, and so the competition was tight. Of course, teams want to see their rookies, their early round rookies succeed. And week 2 of that season, the Lions were going to start Rakestraw over Robertson. And I don't know if you want to call it pull the plug early, but I think they were kind of looking to get the rookie going. And Rakestraw suffered a injury in pregame warmups, which maybe has kind of been the story of his career here. Missed most of his first 2 seasons, unfortunately, but that gave Robertson really a chance to grab the bull by the horns, and he's been their starting slot for 2 seasons. But within that, he's probably started. I don't have it in front of me, but probably about 10 games on the outside, just because when there's been an injury, just the way the depth chart was stacked up, it was easier to move Amik to the outside as opposed to leaving him in the slot. And what I would say about Robertson, we hear guys apply the dog, name to themselves. It's such a
Yeah.
cliche, but like Amik is that dude. Like it is he is if I was to pick like one player that defined dog on the Lions roster, like that is the guy I'm grabbing. Like ultimate underdog, undersized, not the best athletic traits relatively speaking to the position. Um hyper competitive. The way I've described him is every time he steps between those white lines, he believes in his head he's the biggest man on the field, and he plays like it. And it's a little bit of a risk taker, hunting for those picks as playmakers often are, and sometimes that gets him burned on double moves if the coaches aren't hammering over him to be conservative. But he will fight and scrap with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and not bat an eye. And of course, he's going to lose plenty of those matchups individually because almost every corner in the NFL does. But you feel really, really good with what he's going to give you in terms of his ability, his competitiveness, and I think he's a really good and aggressive run stopper in the slot. Right? Like I mean, he not every team emphasizes tackling from their cornerbacks. Detroit does. Like you can't play if you're not going to passionately play the run, and Robertson filled that void pretty well, and made plenty of plays in the run game from the slot as well.
I mean, it's so fun. So much of what you're describing kind of feels like Sanders still. He's obviously not the biggest guy, but always seems to play bigger than he is. He's willing to get in there in the run. And he was the one guy last year for them that was able to make plays. I think they have like 7 interceptions. I think he had 4 of them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they have now 2 guys that have sort of maybe some of that similar abilities. The slot though, would that be your kind of guess of like if you're gonna go make a move to bring him in, that's kind of what you're envisioning?
Yeah, I think you could also say, like, if you've got a guy that you feel travels, is that guy, and I feel like Sanderson's certainly in that conversation of a guy that could maybe travel with the best receiver. And what we found in the NFL these days is good receivers will move in the slot to get away from that because some guys can't handle it. Sanders still can. So you could have him travel and know that a meat can flip to the outside and do both and feel comfortable with it. I would say the one thing that hasn't maybe necessarily ported pro ranks is the playmaking hasn't. Uh, I'm sure he would hate me saying this, but Amik's uh, anticipation with his jumps sometimes are a little premature. I don't know if it's just like, caged dog just getting so excited. The hands aren't great, but he makes up for it. And I should have brought this up earlier. He's got the Meek punch, as he likes to call it. I think 5 forced fumbles last year. I mean, just has this knack. He's always, always, always hunting for the football. And it was something that, you see when you're watching training camp practice, right? Like they have these turnover stations and drills where they're always hammered in with those guys. But like he seemed to be an inspiration to the roster with how effective he was with it. And the Lions were very good as a team last year at getting balls out. We saw Hutchinson kind of turn the corner with that. Jack Campbell, obviously first team All Pro, showed a knack for it. And I really believe that Robertson was kind of uh, the spark plug, I guess, to the roster, kind of figuring that out.
So obviously, I'm not saying you're describing a five-time Pro Bowler, but you're describing somebody that's a positive presence. The contract was 2 for 16, 9.3 million guaranteed. Good money for everybody probably listening here, but for NFL cornerback terms, not a more modest deal. I noticed the Lions have not been particularly active. They did just, as we said, get the Pacheco move, and I actually want to talk to you about the RB mark in a second. But it is this just a matter of the Lions just don't have a lot of room to operate, that kind of maybe let a guy like that go, or was there some other reason you think that they just did not bring him back?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted. I believe his contract here was 2 for 9, and the way I described it is he outplayed it. Like, he was going to make more. I didn't know what more meant, but, you know, 2 for 16, maybe a touch higher, but not not really. I mean, I think we always find every year with the cap going up, we didn't really bake in the inflation that goes in with it. So,
Right.
um, it's not an absurd contract. The fact that he has that versatility, that you can play him outside, that, you said it, positive presence, right? Like, uh, I don't know if you're in the locker room every day still, but like Robertson is going to be one of your favorite people to talk to. I mean, he is authentic, he is colorful, he is uh, borderline braggadocious at times. Just great, great energy, and kind of a fun person to cover, but also like a guy that can be self-reflective when things don't go the right way. He'll explain why maybe he failed on a play. And so, um, yeah, I don't think I have a problem with the contract. I think he's a culture guy as well, and I could see him very much meshing with Dan Quinn.
Um, Washington fans may remember Amik Robertson for not a great moment for Amik Robertson, and that is in the playoff game
Mm.
in Detroit when Washington comes in and pulls off the upset. Sorry, Lions fans, for bringing that up. But he breaks his arm in that game. How much? I mean, obviously, Washington had a lot going on, and the Lions were making too many turnovers. But how much was that of an impact? Is if you recall, for that game to lose a guy like that, especially when you then saw how Jaden Daniels was finding receivers down the field.
Oh, I mean, it's tough to say how one moment affects the game, but the Lions, as you know, that year had more defensive injuries than anybody in the league. I mean, they just were devastated at all levels. And Robertson was already playing on the outside, covering up for Carlton Davis, who had broken his jaw. So that was a really big loss. So now you're already kind of softened up in the secondary. And then you lose Amik. I believe it was first or second defensive series, right? And so, you're playing with backup linebackers and you don't have Aiden Hutchinson. Like, it was really a recipe for disaster. And they held it together so long all year, including I think a pretty dominant performance in that Week 18 game that decided the division between 2 14-win teams. They really housed the Vikings in that one, and rattled Sam Darnold in um, a way that you started questioning his abilities again. And so you thought, yeah, Washington was a good team. Washington's the team I wanted to see because I thought they were a young, exciting team. Like, matchups make entertainment, and that seemed like a really compelling matchup. But
Yeah.
it's like that was the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Like they held it together, held it together, held it together, and then you take that one more piece away, and just everything crumbled.
Yeah. Well, look, Washington, I think we recognize, especially a year later after 5-12, how much went right that way. They did a lot. They did everything right to take advantage of it, but that was one of those moments. In the last couple of minutes here before I let you go, I saw some video passed around. I think it was Amon Ross St. Brown. I guess maybe he was on his own podcast. And he was talking about, this is not from yesterday. I think it's from sometime ways back that he was talking about Robertson going up against Justin Jefferson. I don't know if it's the game that you were just
Yeah.
referencing, but one of those games that he was really sticking with him. Obviously, Jefferson, one of the best receivers in the league. What do you kind of remember, I guess, about that? And is that sort of the example of the heights that he can get when it's all kind of working?
The story with Justin Jefferson is they're both from a pretty small area of Louisiana. I think their high schools were 20, 30, 40 minutes apart. So their rivalry kind of extends a long time. And look, Jefferson was always Justin Jefferson, right? Like he was always a 5-star. He was always headed to LSU. He was always destined for, I think, NFL stardom. And Robertson was always kind of the afterthought. Um, they battled in high school, and there's a story about them going to LSU's camp together, and like Robertson demanding in front of all the coaches that he gets Justin Jefferson on the first rep. And Calvin Shepard, Detroit's defensive coordinator, was there at that, time, and like remembered vividly kind of that attitude, and kind of endeared Robertson to him as a, player and a coach relationship even that early. Uh, and so I don't want to say he feels like a little brother, but like it kind of has that energy, right? Like this is the guy that everybody talks about. You're not. And so you just get so amped up for this matchup. And look, he had help that game. Like they didn't leave him on an island for 70 snaps, but it might have been 30, and then, different safety brackets, linebacker brackets, but they flustered and frustrated and limited what Justin Jefferson was able to do in that matchup. And um, I I might be mixing up games. I think it is correct. Robertson was given a game ball. If it wasn't after that game, it was after another one. But very iconic moment. As I said, very colorful individual. But um, the the locker room scene kind of played out on social media, and he said something like, "Thank you for believing me, but you can't bury something that was born in the dirt." And it's like that. That's a bar that goes incredibly hard. I don't even care if it makes sense. Like it's so good, and so type of thing you put on a T-shirt, and um, every time that he got a chance to battle I mean, his competitive level was always at 11, but like it went up to 11 and a half when Jefferson was on the docket.
Does that mean that Amik Robertson had an impact in the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl because that was a game where Sam Darnold was like the first one at the end of the year where he didn't look quite right, and then people started to question what was going on with him after the playoff loss, and then he goes to Seattle. We giving? Does he get a ring?
I'm not saying it. I'm sure Amik would love to hear that you have brought that idea into the world. That would just make him smile.
Lastly, before I let you go, as I said, right, literally as we were coming on here, it has been reported
Yeah.
that the Lions are signing Isaiah Pacheco. I think Washington. We're all kind of wondering if they're going to go get somebody else. Were you looking at the running back market, thinking, well, hey, they just traded David Montgomery, they got to do something? And was there? It's obviously kind of picked over here going into day two. Was he a guy you were looking at, or was there somebody else in the RB market that you thought might be interesting?
Yeah, in fact, a guy you're very familiar with, the guy that kind of was on the top of my list was Brian Robinson, right?
Sure.
I think what they need to do is they need to replace David Montgomery. It was a weird situation here in Detroit where uh, maybe one of the best duo seasons in NFL history. I don't know maybe about it. Like 2024, Gibbs and Montgomery, over 3,000 yards, over 30 touchdowns combined, like just an incredible, incredible season. And then the Lions last year, very understandably so, flipped their roles. They made Gibbs the starter and Montgomery the complement. Well, what they didn't anticipate is when you're trailing in games or 2-minute drills, um, you tend to go to the receiving back, right? And so like the balance of the rotation, which had been close to 50-50 when Montgomery was a starter, suddenly got like 70-30, and there was several games where Montgomery finished with under 10 touches.
Right.
He is so much better than that. Like he's not Gibbs. Gibbs is the star, but like David Montgomery is a really, really, really good back still in this league. I would say top 15, top 20 at worst. And so what you needed to complement Gibbs, because they're not going to give Gibbs 30 carries. It's very similar to Alvin Kamara throughout his career. Like you have to at some level have load management there to get the best of a guy for a full season. You needed somebody that could take that 30%, a quality back, preferably somebody with some north-south juice to him, between the tackles, can push the pile, little yards after contact. You start looking at those guys. Tyler Algier was one of them. I think he got a contract a little bit bigger than what the Lions were looking to spend. Like I said, I like Brian Robinson if he would have been willing to take something in that 2-6 range. Pacheco absolutely fits that, right? Like, I mean, the 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 question mark with him is, maybe some of the injury history, and I'll dig into that a little bit here as I research the fit. But in terms of like running style, that dude runs angry. I mean, anybody that's watched Kansas City and watched him play, like stylistically, he fits. And if you're going to only ask for, let's say, 10 to 15 carries or 10 to 15 touches a week, depending on matchup, game flow, and all that, like I think it's a really nice compliment to Gibbs.
Yeah, he definitely isn't a one, but that could be a pretty good fit as a compliment. All right, you need to go. I really appreciate the time. The Detroit Football Network, right?
Right.
Go follow and subscribe to Justin on here. Obviously, he knows his stuff about this team, and I appreciate the insight on Amik Robertson.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Maybe we'll have a pipeline. We'll have more things to discuss.
Yeah, no, I'd love to get you on for a more detailed conversation about the teams in the NFC and things along those lines. So I appreciate it, man.
All right, man. I'll talk to you.
All right, we'll talk. Good luck. All right, many thanks to Justin for his time. Thanks everybody here for checking out. I know a lot of the Lions fans jumped in to hear what Justin had to say, so I appreciate you guys being here as well. For those of you who are Commanders people, we're still waiting for stuff to happen here. I'm going to jump off here in a second, see what I can find is if anything is going on. It's been you know talk and talk and talk. Talk does not always mean that something is really happening. Sometimes it's just checking in, but nonetheless, we'll see what they do. They still, of course, need to get a receiver. I talked about this yesterday. The receiver, I think, is going to tell us a lot here about their intentions with a certain somebody. If they go out and get a Romeo Dobbs, and looking at the money that was paid for receivers yesterday, not the Alec Pierce money, 29 million. Not, but if you look at a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, who, yes, we can debate who's the better player or whatever, but like in this sort of general range, he got essentially 19 million average to go from the Giants to the Titans. I think somewhere like that may be the ceiling, and maybe the floor is closer to 17, something along those lines, but that could be where they go. And if they do end up getting Dobbs for that, or maybe it's Jawan Jennings or whatever. If they sign some receiver for, 15 million-ish, give or take, I don't see how you're doing that and bringing in Brandon Ayuk. Even if Brandon Ayuk is coming in for the minimum, you can't just simply say, well, bring in more people at certain spots, like on defense. Sure, you could make that argument, but there's only one ball. You already have Terry McLaurin. Somebody has to play the slot. Like, it's not a real fit. So if they really do go out and get a Romeo Dobbs, then that to me would signal they're not going for Brandon Ayuk, which I think for me, again, I don't know the man. I just know what I've been reading and seeing and all that. I would personally like to steer clear of that. I understand the connections with Jaden Daniels and Adam Peters, but let's just say he's healthy. I think he was coming off the knee injury. He was, I think, ready to start doing more with the 49ers in practice last year, and then he just disappeared. Which is part of the reason why I wouldn't want this. If you're willing to walk away and kind of blow up this massive contract extension you had, I think it was like 4 for 120. I mean, then who knows what else you're willing to do. And then, he shared the Jaden practice video the year before, and he's had some other off the field stuff. So, not saying he's a bad guy. I don't know the man at all. I'm just looking at what I've seen. I don't know that that's what I would want to do, especially if I'm a team that's talked nothing but nonstop, but culture over the last 2+ years. But again, Adam Peters and Jaden Daniels know the guys. So if they vouch, what can we say? I would still imagine it's like a 1-year-ish kind of a deal, even if that were to happen. I can't, I think for both sides, it would be weird to do a longer term deal, even for him, like, hey, let me show what I can do and go from there. But nonetheless, we'll see what happens there. But the question is today, what else are they going to do? We were just mentioned the running back market. Rashad White is somebody certainly keeping an eye on. I can't sit here and tell you that he's definitively in the mix here for Washington now at this late stage, but the fit makes too much sense on multiple levels. Another guy that played college with Jaden Daniels. a guy that averages 50 catches a year for his 4 years with Tampa Bay. He's got some decent size. He's not a water bug. He's about 214. So pairing him with Bill, I think would be a really good combination because Bill, at least to this point, has not shown much as a pass catcher. Again, he's played 10 seconds and we'll see. I thought he had some moments, but they clearly weren't overly comfortable with him. Part of that was pass protection as well. So that could be a good pairing and also one where it's not blocking Bill. I talked about possibly could they look at a Tyler Algier. I never bought into the Kenneth Walker thing, but Tyler Algier was something I'd heard about. At least initially, it sounds like that faded off as things got closer to the finish line. But that would be a situation where maybe now Bill is more of the complementary piece. A Rashard White, then Bill would be able to be, sort of still the lead, right? But so there you go. All right. Let me do this. Let me jump out of here. Let me go make some more calls. Let's see if something happens. If you missed it yesterday, I did a um, podcast, Last Man Standing podcast with my guy Chris Miller from the Team 980. You can hear all that. I did a short video recapping day one. I wrote about Oweh in particular. I did a draft free agent tracker touching at least on all of the moves, including the Tunsil deal. So all that's in there. And of course, as we go through this, still a long way to go. They still have, you know, 40 guys that they need to sign, give or take, just to get to the 90-man roster. They won't, of course, all that won't happen now. They'll have the draft, undrafted free agents. But I mean, they still have a lot more vets to go here across the board. I would say after yesterday, you could probably, I would guess, right off interior defensive lineman outside of just, depth or deep depth, camp body. The cornerback, I think they're probably set there at the top, but you can still get another edge quarterback. Yes, I guess they're set there. I don't know what they're going to do at QB3. They've had three quarterbacks under Dan Quinn so far. I don't imagine Sam Hartman's QB3, but we'll see what they do. And other than that, yeah, I think it's still wide open. So we will see what they do. All right, cool. You guys rock. I appreciate it. We'll talk more later when they start to do something else. Peace.